What is up, folks, and welcome. Welcome to the Digital Dopamine Podcast, episode 6. Today, we're going to be going over deepfakes and everything deepfake. I titled this one Deepfake Disco. New deepfake issues popping up recently, definitely with the new technologies around the AI improvements coming out. There's new tooling that people are able to access via open source technologies to exploit, other fellow citizens. So this is where we are as a society. So it pains me to see our society slowly but predictably corrode. We've had scammers and thieves long before, but there's something uniquely dark about deepfake technology where many people can't decipher the difference between the deepfake and the real person. Visual deception was the limit with deepfakes for a while. It was possible to mimic a face with near one-to-one accuracy, but as soon as voice came into play, the jig was up. So now, with the vast improvements in AI, the audio generation, voice deception is more accurate than ever before, and is extremely worrying because the baby boomer group or generation are typically the ones targeted with these phone scams and video scams. And when it comes to video, if they see somebody that looks like one of their relatives, they're most likely going to believe that that is the actual person. And then couple that with the voice of their relative, it's a done deal. They are cooked. So I want to educate as many folks as I can to help them combat the rise of deepfakes and the scams that come around them, as well as give a quick overview of what deepfakes are in general and the problems with the tech itself. So we'll dive into what deepfakes are. And this is just a general, definition of it. So deepfakes are images, videos, or audio that have been edited or generated using artificial intelligence. So they may depict real or fictional people and are considered a form of synthetic media. That is, media that is usually created by artificial intelligence systems by combining various media elements into a new media artifact. Again, that's the general definition of what deepfakes are. So for a bit of history, an early project called the Video Rewrite Program was published in 1997. The program modified existing video footage of a person speaking to depict that person mouthing the words from a different audio track. So this instance was the first system to fully automate the kind of facial reanimation that we know to come about with deepfakes. And it did so using machine learning techniques to make the connections between the sound produced by a video subject and the shape of the subject's face. So fast forward some years today, the deepfakes we know stem from generative adversarial networks, GANs for short. So this was developed in 2014, published in a research paper by research Ian Goodfellow and his colleagues. Ian Goodfellow worked for Google's DeepMind. He worked for Apple's machine learning division. And with creating this technology, GANs, he spearheaded a lot of other projects related to neural networks and artificial intelligence. So he's a very well-known person within that sphere. So a GAN is a machine learning model designed to generate realistic data by learning patterns from existing training data sets. It operates within an unsupervised learning framework by using deep learning techniques where two neural networks work in opposition. One generates data while the other evaluates whether the data is real or generated. So the generator creates the synthetic content and the discriminator evaluates whether the content is real. So this back and forth eventually makes the fake content look real for the user, or as real as possible. Think of it as sharpening a sword against a steel block. So where every time the sword, which is the generator in this case, is run against the steel block, the discriminator, the sword gets sharper. So deepfakes entered mainstream around 2018 after that advancement of deepfakes with the release of accessible open source deepfake tools like Deepface Lab. In 2023, the deepfake tool market skyrocketed with a 44% increase in development of these tools. And again, the reason behind that are nefarious reasons. So it's pretty messed up tech that people are producing from deepfake technology. So there's not much more to elaborate on that front on the moral compass of things, but just know that deepfakes could be used for appropriate purposes and even appropriate parodies, something that's not disrespectful or anything like that. But 9 times out of 10, it's used for things like creating synthetic media of world leaders or creating content, copying copyrighted media along with other terrible, purposes. There's a huge concern amongst academics around deepfakes promoting disinformation, violence, and hate speech. And unfortunately, the creation of non consensual explicit content of women has served as a motivating factor for the rising popularization of deepfake tools. The problem is rampant, with Security Zero reporting that in 2023, approximately 98% of deepfake videos online are explicit in nature, and only 1% of targets in that category are male, which is insane. Researchers have also shown that deepfakes are expanding into other domains, such as medical imagery. So, in this sphere of work, it was shown how an attacker can automatically inject or remove lung cancer in a patient's 3D CT scan. So the results were so convincing that it fooled 3 radiologists and a state-of-the-art lung cancer detection AI. To demonstrate the threat, the author successfully performed the attack on a hospital in a white hat penetration test. And a white hat penetration test is pretty much just a authorized pen test to discover vulnerabilities within the company and let the company know what those vulnerabilities are, so they can go in and patch those vulnerabilities. They know you're hacking into their system. They give you the proper authorization and admin tools and permissions and stuff to hack into their system for those purposes only. So this white hat, gray hat, which they work in the middle area, and then black hat, which hacks into systems that they are not authorized to get into, but they got the credentials for. Nonetheless, moving on. Another example is a sophisticated scam using AI-generated video and voice that nearly compromised a well-known crypto developer linked to the Cardano ecosystem. The attacker impersonated Pierre Cacalamanos, head of digital assets adoption at the Cardano Foundation, during what appeared to be a legitimate Microsoft Teams call. The target, who was a developer, Big Pay, said the scam almost succeeded after he followed instructions during their fake meeting that he somehow got all the way to. So you can see the problems that are arising with now targets against big organizations and definitely big crypto and blockchain organizations. And there are plenty of other domains that this can have a negative impact on, especially if we continue down the line of tokenization. We'd be faced with deepfake contracts and deeds, getting people to sign away assets and funds to the attacker without even knowing that they're signing away their life and their assets. It's very, very worrying in my opinion. And I think that we all need to be more aware of these issues upon us, because when things do become tokenized and then deepfake technology gets even better, I really fear that people are going to be fooled into really signing away a lot of their assets and won't be able to do anything about it. So how can we prevent that from happening? I want to go over a little bit of how to protect yourselves, and protecting yourself is going to be the best way to avoid being scammed or caught up in any deepfake frauds or issues that might arise. So it's good to know a handful of the things to look out for when it comes to scams and deepfakes, and the best practices to follow to not be a victim of fraud. So verify. I'm just gonna go over a couple of bullet points. Verify before you trust. If you receive an unexpected call, video call, message from someone claiming to be a family member, colleague, or authority figure, especially one asking for money or sensitive information, verify their identity through a separate channel. Call them back on a known number, or reach out via text or email immediately. So let's say a relative or your son calls you saying he's broke and he needs some funds. He needs a little bit of bread to be wired to him. and he needs your assistance immediately. And and then they're talking about it in an urgency. Immediately hang up, or I wouldn't say immediately hang up. Just hang up the phone, let them know you're hanging up, and then call your son back from the actual number that you know your son has, and then confirm if it's actually him. Easy way to verify and avoid sending some random person a bunch of money. You can also establish a family safe word. So one of the most practical defenses against voice deepfake calls is creating a secret code word with close family and friends. If someone calls claiming to be them in an emergency, ask for the safe word. No legitimate loved one will be offended if you ask for the safe word. So if they push back and constantly combat you saying that they shouldn't need to provide the safe word, that's obviously a scam. Slow down. So urgency is a red flag. Hackers try to push urgency and get people to make decisions without properly thinking about it. So deepfake scammers really do rely on panic. And a lot of the cases that come about are because of people panicking. And if any call, video, or message is pressuring you to act right now, that's your cue to pause, take a look, and check the fine details to see if it's an actual real call to action. And an easy way to check some fine details are just check the email, check the font, see if there's any weird font, checks for spelling errors, check for a weird signature, check for weird formatting, so things like that. Next is one of the most important ways to protect yourself, in my opinion, and that's to use multi-factor authentication. And I would also recommend to use passkeys if you have the access to use passkey. So use both. Even if a scammer uses a deepfake to impersonate you to a bank or service provider, MFAs adds a critical extra barrier. A voice or face alone shouldn't be enough to authorize anything sensitive. And if a service is relying on solely those, verification processes, then that's a concern worth raising to them. But use MFA. Multi-factor authentication is the way to go. And if you have passkey, use that as well because it uses the fingerprint and facial recognition technology. Outside of those few tips, there are a handful of other tips, but I would recommend looking into other ways to protect yourself from deepfakes. But these are some of the main ones that should be mostly effective for your day to day. And finally, we need to face this issue head on because it's not going anywhere. Deepfakes are here to stay. The threat and its consequences are very real and present. Deepfakes today are at a point of undermining trust in the online identity verification process that many organizations, especially in the financial sector, have come to rely upon. With more people than ever authenticating themselves using biometrics across all of their devices, the growth in the malicious use of deepfakes can lead to a dire need to rethink authentication security within the next 5 years or sooner, which contradicts a little bit what I had mentioned earlier about using passkey and using passkey for authentication as well, because passkey relies on facial recognition and fingerprint. And if there is a way to mimic that payload when they're requesting it via, the process of you authenticating yourself, then that could be compromised as well. While MFA, which is usually using one of the multi-factor authentication apps from Google or OneAuth or what have you, or Apple even has their own internal authentication code. Those are just randomly generated, keys. So there's no biometrics involved, and there's really no way to mimic the rotating keys because they're consistently rotating. And as explained in the examples, the barrier to entry for creating realistic deepfakes has drastically decreased. From cloned voices to video impersonations, deepfakes empower scammers and fraudsters in ways that are harder to detect and defend against. So understanding the threat is the first step to defending yourself against it. With more end-user security training and leveraging emerging deepfake detection tools, organizations and individuals can begin to fight back against these new threats. We also have to help our elders and loved ones who aren't tech savvy get up to speed with the rising threat with deepfakes so that they too can be prepared to combat what's to come. So that wraps it up for this episode. Appreciate you guys joining me, and I hope that you got something out of it. I hope that you learned a little bit about deepfakes and start preparing yourself to protect yourself from deepfakes. So, until next time, peace.